You've been lied to. You've been told beholders are just monsters, big floating balls with too many eyes and too many lasers, that they live in dungeons, shoot some rays, and die when the barbarian rolls a crit. That's not the truth. The truth is beholders are some of the most alien, dangerous, and obsessively paranoid creatures in all of Dungeons & Dragons. They don't just fight you, they outthink you. They don't just live in lairs, they design death traps that reflect their fractured minds. And they definitely don't like each other. Today we're pulling back the curtain on one of D&D's oldest and most bizarre monsters, where they came from, how they think, what makes them so terrifying, and how to use that to make your players sweat. This isn't just a lore deep dive, this is the truth about beholders. And it all starts with where they came from. Hey Dungeon Master, picture this. It's game night, you're scrambling to prep, and inspiration's running low. Sound familiar? I know it happens to me. Now imagine having two massive tomes, Lairs and Legends 2 and Loot and Lore 2, packed with drop-in ready adventures, epic villains, deadly traps, custom monsters, magic items, rich lore, and more, all D&D 5e compatible. Gone are the days of freaking out before your next game session. Look, these books were professionally designed by veteran DMs, including me, and they've already helped thousands of dungeon masters elevate their games. Need a last-minute lair with deadly traps and twisted lore? Crack Lairs and Legends 2 open. Want a villain so devious they'll haunt your players' dreams? You'll find them lurking in Loot and Lore 2. So if you love running games but hate the preparation and chaos, grab your copies now at thedmlair.com or the link below. We even have limited edition alt covers still available, but they probably won't last for long. Your players will probably think you planned your next game session for weeks. But don't worry, I won't tell. Hello folks, welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and on this channel I share my nearly 30 years of Game Master experience so that you can run amazing games that your players will love. Okay, beholders, let's begin where it all started. Origins, a D&D original. Beholders, eye tyrants, or spheres of many eyes, didn't come from folklore. They weren't stolen from Tolkien. They're pure Dungeons & Dragons. One of the first monsters original to the game. They made their debut in the original Greyhawk supplement and even graced the cover. The first version was created by Greg Bell, a 14-year-old friend of Gary Gygax. And since then, nearly every major D&D artist has taken a turn drawing them, from terrifying to downright goofy. In those early days, beholders were presented with little lore. They lived underground, attacked on sight, and could be bribed if you were lucky. Originally neutral with chaotic leanings, they were later reclassified as lawful evil in the AD&D Monster Manual. Still, for a long time, a beholder was just a floating death orb. There was no history, no origin, just I-beams and attitude. That all started to change with the arrival of Dragon magazine and a little article called The Ecology of the Beholder, building the lore from floating balloons to cosmic tyrants. Early on, beholders were more floating hazard than fully fleshed out villains. That started to shift with Dragon magazine number 76, which gave us The Ecology of the Beholder by Ed Greenwood and Roger E. Moore. This was the first serious attempt to explain how these things actually work. According to the article, beholders levitate thanks to a magical organ in their brain called the levator magnus, and they prefer to live underground because they couldn't push their bodies against high winds. We also learned they're omnivores, aggressively so, and reproduce once a year by vomiting up 4 eggs from their mouths. It was gross, it was weird, and aside from a little about their diet and combat instincts, that was about it. The second volume of the AD&D Dungeon Master's Companion finally made beholders look dangerous. No more balloon with teeth. And that artwork carried over to the second edition Monstrous Compendium cover. Though unfortunately, the interior art went right back to looking like a confused parade float. Lore-wise, second edition still kept things light, but it did start to define beholders' paranoia and xenophobia as innate traits. It also contradicted the whole egg vomiting thing and said they were probably parthenogenic, I can't say that word, cloning themselves into perfect copies. But the real shift came with two words, Spelljammer and tyrant. In Spelljammer, beholders and the Illithids were reimagined as ancient spacefaring species originating somewhere deep in wild space. Each beholder believed it alone was the pinnacle of their species and civilization. They built ships, sailed the void, and declared war on each other just for existing. Then came tyrant, which expanded the lore like never before. It introduced the idea of a beholder city in the Underdark and elevated the Hive Mother, originally just a stat block, into a true power player. These monstrous matriarchs subjugated other beholders and ruled with absolute psychic dominance. It was bureaucratic nightmare meets horror cult, and it changed how DMs used beholders forever. By the way, if you're finding this information useful, please give me a thumbs up and share this video with a fellow game master, and drop me a comment to appease the all-powerful algorithm. Something as simple as, Luke, you actually don't suck this time, well, that'll get the job done. Modern lore, nightmares, brains, and the Great Mother. 3rd edition started off pretty sparse when it came to beholder lore. The monster manual gave us the basics and slapped on a usually lawful evil tag, and that was about it. For a creature that shoots death from 10 eyeballs, it was weirdly underdeveloped. But then Lords of Madness came out in 3.5 and everything changed. This book was a full-blown love letter to aberrations, and beholders got their due. We learned about their dual brains, their dietary habits, and how their young have horrifyingly low survival rates because most of them get disintegrated by their parent for being imperfect. Lords of Madness also gave us their true origin story. The beholders were spawned on one of the outer planes by an unnamed reality warping entity known only as the Great Mother. She's not a goddess. They don't need gods. She's a primal being, and they revere her while ignoring every other beholder that's come since. Because of course they do. And their society? Barely a society at all. Most beholders are too xenophobic and hostile to tolerate each other for more than a few seconds. But the book does allow for rare exceptions. Insanely rare, sane beholders who might form cults or hive-like communities similar to the ones from tyrant. Most, though, are just monomanical. What does monomanical mean? I gotta talk to my scriptwriter. But most of them are monomanical nightmares with delusions of grandeur and enough brain power to back it up. I probably should actually know the words in the videos that I'm making. That would be a smart thing to do, don't you think? It means something really bad and I could get in trouble. Then came 4th edition, which largely coasted on the lore from earlier editions. Monster Manual gave us a clean presentation, some mechanics, and basically said, you know what these guys are by now, right? And then 5th edition cracked the weird wide open. The Monster Manual kept things traditional, but Volo's Guide to Monsters leaned into the strange, surreal side of beholders and introduced a terrifying concept. Beholders are literally born from their own dreams. Here's how it works. When a beholder sleeps, which is rare, its mind stays fully active, often dreaming of itself or imagined variations. And if the dream is vivid enough, reality warps and spits out a brand new, fully formed beholder. No eggs, no mating, no Great Mother required. Just one meatball's warped ego reshaping reality. Volo's also dives deep into their psychology, highlighting their inhuman intellect, need for control, and obsessive paranoia. It gives guidance for how to roleplay them, how they fight, and even includes variant I-beams to keep players guessing. In short, 5th edition took all the best parts of beholders from Lords of Madness, Spelljammer, and tyrant and rolled them into the definitive, apparently, version until they changed their minds in the next edition. The definitive version of the monster. An arrogant, reality-shaping tyrant born from its own mind and convinced it is perfection incarnate. However, when 6th edition comes out, and you know it will if it hasn't technically already, my money is on them changing lore yet again because, hey, why not, right? Psychology, paranoia, perfection, and disintegration. At their core, beholders are defined by 3 things, depending on which version of the lore you go with, I guess. Xenophobia, arrogance, and control. They believe themselves to be perfect, not in a general sense, in a specific, terrifying way. A beholder thinks that its body, its exact arrangement of eye stalks, teeth, skin texture, is the pinnacle of evolution. All of their beholders are hideous mutations that must be purged. They are isolationist. They are egomaniacs. They don't form societies unless they're part of a hive ruled by a mother they can't challenge. Even then, that unity is temporary. They're also genius-level intelligent, often bordering on madness. Some form cults, some write manifestos, some build lairs that are masterpieces of arcane engineering and psychological warfare. And through it all, they believe one thing above all else. I see everything. I control everything, and I will not be threatened. Fighting a beholder, what DMs need to know. Let's be real, guys. Beholders are boss monsters. They are the kind of monster you put an entire adventure around. Combat with a beholder is unique because it's not just about hit points and armor class. It's about positioning, terrain, and eye raise. A smart beholder floats above melee range, uses its central eye to shut down magic, and peppers the party with randomized beams, paralysis, fear, disintegration, charm. They're unpredictable, overwhelming, and absolutely terrifying when used well. But there's a catch. Beholders are arrogant. Use that. A clever party can goad one into overextending, split its attention, or exploit its need for control. And if you want to make things even more intense, modify the lair. Beholders build their homes with anti-magic zones, traps, floating platforms, and terrain that gives them the edge. Used right, a beholder isn't just a monster, it's an event. Which version do I use? I really enjoyed the 3rd edition lore, the cult of the Great Mother, the isolationist paranoia, the sheer religious zealotry of it. Also, there's something deeply compelling about a monster that doesn't just want to kill you. It thinks you deserve to die because you're imperfect. That said, I think 5th edition's Dreamborn version is genius in its own way. It taps into something more surreal, more alien. A being that creates reality from its own thoughts is deeply D&D, and it gives you some wild narrative options for spawning new beholders mid-campaign. But if I have to run one at my table, it's the Zealot, the Tyrant, the eye that watches and judges. That's the beholder I want. But that's just what I think. Which version of the beholder do you like the most? Let us know down in the comments. And don't forget to pick up your copy of Lairs of Legends 2 at the link down below. The limited edition alt covers will not last for long. Now, if you'd like to learn more about orcs and how you've been lied to yet again, watch this video right here. And until next time, happy game mastering.